Hello, Renegade marketers. Welcome to Renegade Marketers Unite, the top rated podcast for B2B CMOs and other marketing obsessed individuals. You're about to listen to a recording of Renegade Marketers Live, our live show featuring the CMOs of CMO Huddles, a community that's sharing, caring, and daring each other to greatness every day of the week. This time, we've got a conversation with superstar CMOs Rebecca Stone of Cisco Meraki and Peeyush Dubey of LTI at the time and now CMO at MathCo. They've got a ton of insights to share about how large enterprises are approaching brand and looking to the future. I think you're going to love the episode. Let's dive in. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. In the last 2 years, most B2B brands have had no choice but to invest in digital marketing and the MarTech to support it because physical events were not an option. This led to an explosion in content creation and what we now call digital fatigue, in which many forms of digital marketing like webinars, virtual events, display ads, and paid search began to show diminishing returns. It has also made it easy to keep the focus on demand generation and not the things that might be called brand building. But now the physical events are returning. We renegades can't help but wonder if digital will be dialed back, at least momentarily, and more traditional modes of brand spending will see an uptick. This is but one of the big questions we plan on exploring today's show with our big time guests. And with that, let's bring on Rebecca Stone, CMO of Meraki Cisco, and SVP CSM and star of episode 134 of Renegade Marketers Unite and episode 12 of this show. Hello, Rebecca. Nice to have you back.
Hi, Drew. It's good to see you again.
So how are you and where are you?
It looks like I'm actually sitting in the Oval Office of the White House, but this is just my background so that you don't know that I am actually in the laundry room.
I know that you're in a laundry room
And have been for 2 years.
Yes, we have enjoyed and sympathized with you all through the pandemic from your laundry room. And the good news is you can multitask with the best of them.
I can.
So maybe, we're mixing things up on this show and maybe momentarily, maybe let's get a little personal. So we've already talked about the laundry room, but could you share one thing you've come to appreciate about working from home and one thing you won't miss at all?
Yeah, I think maybe it's the same thing, which is being with my kids. But I know when they get home from school, which I mean, I don't think maybe I got to do 2 or 3 times in the 2 years before the pandemic. And now I know every day when they come home from school, and every day the first thing they do is make as much noise as humanly possible and run into the room and decide to say hello to everybody who's on the call. So I both love being able to say that, and I kind of like dread the loudness that comes with them coming home too.
Yeah, well, it is definitely one of those things that everybody's lives just sort of seem to blend together. And so
Yep.
it's kind of funny that, that we now know if associates have young kids, we know who they are, and we've spent some quality time with them too.
Yep, exactly.
But, in many ways, I feel like that is one of the things that sort of helped us get through this.
It is. And like I said, I mean, it's a completely different experience than it was, in the beginning of the pandemic, like was sitting there and listening to all of my daughter's calls with her teacher when they were on, Zoom school or virtual school. And it was a totally, to actually be able to be immersed and understand like the challenges that the teacher had every day and some of the challenges that my daughter had with school. It was a much more intimate understanding of that than I would have had any other opportunity. And I think that was interesting. And I learned a lot from being able to hear that. But it was also a huge balancing act to be able to manage everybody in the house trying to do things all at once.
Yeah,
So,
the blending of the two. It's like work and play or work and family just
yeah.
never sort of one never stops.
There's no good balance on a good day. So on one of those days it was complete chaos for sure.
Yeah, I just can imagine, and so grateful at this moment that our kids were out of the house when this happened and didn't have to do what. And now, but I also imagine that we're 2 years into this. It's not going to be easy if you suddenly had to go back to the office 5 days a week. That would also be incredibly disruptive.
And so luckily, Cisco is phenomenal in supporting a hybrid work kind of style. They're not requiring that anybody go back to the office like permanently. There will be no requirements that you go back to the office. They are encouraging people to go back to foster that in-person communication and those types of things. But it's going to be very different than it was before. And as somebody who has an hour plus commute one way, I got time back in my day to like go to the gym, which is awesome. And so I've started going back once a week. And we'll be going back probably twice a week when we're fully all the way back into that process. And I'm excited. There are pieces that are missing, but I think that gives that balance of at least 3 days of the week I'll be home and know when the kids get home, and 2 of the days, they get a break from mom being here and having to be quiet while they're home.
Interesting. And I mean, it's funny, and we'll get to a lot of these other topics, but as I think about it, the one big challenge that nobody's really sort of addressed is, okay, we're getting together because the idea is maybe we collaborate when we're working together, but if the right people aren't there that day that you want to collaborate with,
Yeah.
what's happened?
Yeah. So we're trying to tackle that with the encouragement of our, at least for my team. What we said is, look, nobody's going to be required to come into the office any day of the week. But if you do come in, let's try and make those days that you come in and like Tuesday, Wednesday. And if you are planning to come in just one day of the week, pick a Tuesday or a Wednesday for you to come in. And the same for actually traveling. So when travel from out of the area picks up again, if you are going to come in, make it 1 week out of the month. So what we're saying is make it the second week of the month that you plan to come in. And then everybody who's there, locally, if you're planning to come in, make sure you come in Tuesday, Wednesday, so that we have as many people in that area as possible who are together to ensure it. So again, like I keep telling my team, this going back thing is going to be as much of an experiment as the whole like shoving us all into working from home was. We've adapted quite well in 2 years. And so that's what I keep telling my team is now, there will be another time of adjustment that we've started to move into. And 2 years from now, we'll look back and it'll feel totally natural to us.
There you go. All right. Well, the topic at hand is sort of bigger and better B2B branding. And when I thought about all the conversations that we've had over the past few years, it's almost always been about demand gen and tech stacks. And
Yeah.
in fact, just a shout out, Rebecca was really helpful with my book when we got to that area. She was like my sensei. So I'm very grateful for you for all of that. But we've never talked about brand. And so I'm really curious how you are thinking about the role of brand right now for Meraki Cisco.
Yeah, I think for Cisco and for Meraki specifically within the Cisco organization, it's different because we have a parent brand. We have the Cisco brand that is a phenomenal brand. It's it's a Fortune 100 company and it's very well known within the IT sector that we sell to. And so it's more about how do we fit Meraki within to Cisco overall. So I think that's one. I think the thing that's really important to remember is I believe everything that you do has an element of brand and everything has an element of demand. PR is just the first step in a demand funnel. Your brand and your brand look and feel and your brand messaging is a core component of demand. If you can't like carry that brand message from start to finish and like make sure that your salesperson is aligning with the brand that you're trying to sell with all of the traditional like more branding kind of things like advertising and PR, you're not going to be successful. And so I think that brand has to be infused. And in the same way, and I think is probably less popular of an opinion, is that demand has to be thought of when you're thinking of brand as well. And your comms strategy should be as tightly aligned to the demand gen strategy as the demand gen strategy is aligned to comms, because they have to be part of a whole. They have to be part of a marketing strategy. And I don't think that you can have one without the other.
I think you're right. I think you're right. The question though is that there are things that aren't when
that
you
are
think
more
about
art
demand
and
gen,
science.
you think about measurement, you think about
Yeah,
leads, you think
yeah,
about funnel, and brand is a little squishier. It's hard to tell. It's the reason that
yeah,
you may have been part of an opportunity, may or not.
yeah.
But let's talk about what's a Meraki and how do you sort of build that? Because Cisco is so well known. How do you make sure that people see it as a distinct part of the Cisco offering?
Yeah, and I think so. Part of that is we have a tightly aligned closed loop funnel. And so the brand is not just about, again, like what you're putting out into the market, but it's also the experience that a customer has when they come to you. So, how do the sales teams show up when they are talking to a customer? How does the customer service team show up, and what are they known as, and how are they defined? And so, we have a lot of alignment, not just with our sales organization and with the traditional like brand things that you would think about, but we have a CX squad, we call it, where I meet with our head of CS, and we are running joint programs to be able to align how we show up to our customers with an experience that I think is tightly aligned to the brand, because the experience that a customer talks about then gets out by word of mouth marketing. It gets out by what they're putting on the forums that they're in. And so that's just as important to making sure that it's aligned. I think that that's one, is how you think about that closed loop from start to finish of that customer journey, the customer experience, and how you make sure that that aligns and stays true to the values that you hold as an organization. The second thing I think is that we are really thinking about how we differentiate. We have quite a few programs that we're working on with other business units within Cisco. And I think segmentation is actually one of those things that is really key, and segmentation in the sense of you understand who your buyer is. And so if you are working with a partner organization, or in our sense, like a partner who is another component of Cisco, really understanding why the customer cares from the perspective of the both strategies that are happening, so that I know, hey, this is my customer and it's the same as your customer, but what differentiates us is that maybe they're buying this product from us and that product from you. And so how do we come at it from the same perspective and tell the story in a way that aligns, but is very clear who the person who's sitting on the buying committee is, and how you talk to that person on the buying committee so that they understand what we do versus what the other organization does. And so that's really messaging and brand. That's not a strategy of like, hey, here's the emails that I'm going to send and here's the conversion rates that we're going to get. It's very much a, how do I talk to the customer, and in what way to make it as crystal clear as possible where we are differentiated from the rest of the Cisco portfolio, and how we actually, even more importantly, align to the broader portfolio strategy.
Okay, just before we move on, from a closed loop, because it's funny, we're doing a bonus huddle coming up on putting
Yeah.
ops, and closed loop comes up as a conversation as part of measurement. But just define that for me a little bit. So is it just complete touch points from
Yeah,
prospecting
so
to
within
customer?
Meraki, and I think that this is one of the things that has to do with working as part of a bigger organization, is that there is a corporate demand gen team, and then there are also demand gen teams that work within the business units. And we have one of the teams within overall Cisco that all of the aspects of marketing, from product marketing through to demand gen, PR, comms included, all sit within the Meraki business unit, as well as we have a sales team that's dedicated to Meraki. It's just like working in a startup company or a smaller size company than Cisco. You would expect everything to be aligned. That the head of CS, the head of sales, the head of marketing, the head of product are all working and aligned towards one product or suite of products that you're selling. Within the Meraki business unit, that's the case for Cisco, which is not necessarily what you can assume for all of Cisco or all of many companies.
Got it. Okay. All right. We're going to bring on Peeyush Dubey, who is the CMO of LTI and star of episode 269 of Renegade Marketers Unite. Hello, Peeyush. How are you?
Hi, Drew. Doing good. How are you?
Excellent. Just great. Enjoying my standing desk today. Now, Rebecca and I had some personal chats here. Perhaps you could share one thing about yourself that others might find surprising.
Sure. So Rebecca talked about spending a lot of time with her kids. That's what I do as well. And I've been doing over the last 2 years. And one good thing that has happened to me during this time is that I have figured out all the places where they keep their chocolates. And now they have to hide their chocolates from me. So as a chocoholic, that's what I do. In fact, the March chocolate tasting was something that I missed because I was traveling at that time. But love for chocolates is something which everybody who knows me knows.
Oh my
knows
gosh.
about
Did we
me.
send you the chocolate anyway? Did you get it?
Of course you did, and I ate all of them. Like
They were
didn't take me more than 2 days.
amazing. I have to
Wonderful
say,
chocolate.
I really look forward to just one of the little slices of the wheel every day. I was very disappointed
Exactly.
when that. Okay, so your kids, no luck for them in terms of hiding chocolate.
That-
That is hilarious. So LTI is just a huge company. I mean, 43,000 employees all over the world. One thing that just occurs to me as I think about that kind of numbers is the potential brand ambassadors. And I'm just wondering how marketing to employees fits into your overall brand building activities.
Actually, it's 46,000 employees now. Last year we have been growing very fast. We added lots of LTIs and brand ambassadors during this time. So more than 46,000 employees across 32 countries, and extremely important for the marketing team to look at our LTIs as the brand ambassadors, and all the more difficult as well because these are the employees. Many of them are around 60% of our employees have joined in the last 2 years after the pandemic began, and many of them have still not even seen the offices. So they have never been in a building with LTI written on top of it. Therefore, it is so much more important for the communications team, for the marketing team, to get them to understand the brand, to get them to talk about it better. And that's what we have been focusing on. I cannot say that we are masters of it, but that's what we have been trying to do. So a few things that we strive to do is that we want to create more viral moments. We studied what are the areas, what are the things that employees as brand ambassadors would like to share on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or with their other friends. And we created more of those moments. We try and create more of those moments. For example, it's always great for employees to see their colleagues, their peers on the social channels, on the website. And so we have spent a lot of time in trying to showcase those moments. So we first work on the internal contests, whether it's a photography contest or whether it's the Women's Day celebration. And then we share the same things on our social media platforms. And that's when things go viral. And we have set certain level of engagement rates that we strive to do. We create content that is easy to share. Recently, we launched a data product called Phosphor, and we had an internal event called Illuminate LinkedIn. Phosphor is all about discovering the undiscovered. So we created this Illuminate LinkedIn campaign, and we shared simple messages that all the employees could share easily. So extremely important, and definitely something that we focus a lot on.
A couple things to unpack. The first thing, you started to get into this area, and the fact that 60% were higher than the last 2 years have never physically been in an office. And even though you're a consulting company that I imagine a lot of the folks spend time on the client in the client offices in the world of technology and so forth really were the place where culture sort of came to life. So you talked a little bit about creating viral moments, but I wanted to step back to this notion of for those 60%, I mean, beyond social sharing, how do you really imbue culture and values and so that they have a sense of what this company is about?
Number one, it's difficult, but some of the ways in which we try to do that is have more one-on-one interactions. So, for example, there's one program that we have where anybody who has been with the company for some time, people like me and others, just spend half an hour with somebody who has joined over the last 2 years with absolutely no agenda. We call it a coffee chat, and we just go, we talk. So where did the person join from? What is she working on these days? What does she like about LTI? So what's causing some pain right now? And that's really it's probably one of the best conversations that I have in my month. And more we do that, the easier it gets for everybody to join. Thankfully, over the last 2 months, we are encouraging, just like Rebecca mentioned, we are encouraging more and more employees to come to office and pick up a day that they can be there. And just like Cisco Meraki, it is the Wednesday that we choose. And so Wednesdays are a buzz in the office. And so we are spending a lot more time together. But one more thing that we are doing is we are finding more moments where we can have casual interactions with each other. In the earlier episode, we talked about the whole idea of Shoshin and Ubuntu. Ubuntu is it's the African word which means I am because we are. And so we say that, hey, let's just spend time together. We make each other successful, and let's have more casual interactions. So these are more evenings that we have together whenever we can, more gatherings as team, and that is what is helping a lot.
I am because we are. I just love that. I love that language. It's just so much in an economy of words, but it is the kind of thing that you need a forcing function, like people being in the office or like doing an event together. I love the coffee chats, and I love the fact that it spreads out. We talked a lot about that in CMO huddles in the early days, just different ways that you can have random interactions, because that's what we're sort of missing. Everything is so forced. So you mentioned social and viral moments, and that feels like that's a big part of employee engagement. And I just want to make sure that there's nothing that your marketing sort of feeds that social channel as a means of it. Are you using it like a software to manage that?
Yeah, all the standard software for Twitter, for LinkedIn, but it's an amazing team, and I know they are online even right now because we are live on LinkedIn. And actually, I'm always surprised how they do it. We have 2 million followers across all channels, and it just happens. So
There. All right. Okay. We spent a lot of time on the last time we were together about new product that you had launched in the early days of the pandemic, but we really didn't talk about LTI brand. And I'm just curious how you're thinking about the LTI brand has evolved over the couple of years, and maybe just talk about it from a strategy standpoint, and then we can talk about it from an execution standpoint.
one, I think the need for marketers to rethink how they are branding is immense. So much has changed over the last 2 years, and so much keeps changing all the time. I recently heard the episode that you had with Ross Graber of Forrester, and I was surprised, yet not surprised, about the fact that the number of interactions has gone up from 17 to 27. That's the field that marketers are now navigating, and so branding plays a tremendous role in that. Some of the things that we are doing within LTI to rethink how we go to market and how people look at the brand. One, we focus a lot more on there are a bunch of stakeholders, two stakeholders that we said we need to have inordinate focus on during the pandemic, especially are the clients and the employees. And we'll say, okay, so as long as we will focus everything on the clients, as long as we can keep the SLAs intact, we have to make sure that we do what we have contractually obliged to do for our clients, as long as our employees are safe and they are happy. And so with that in mind, we set out to do all the things to work on LTI as a brand. That changed the NPS of the brand through our customer satisfaction index. We found went up by 23 points in 1 year, which is, as you would understand, a significant rise. As in, we never saw in the last 7 years that I was here, never saw that kind of rise. It was inching up slowly, but never saw a 23 points rise. And so we thought, what is it that we will do more? We are spending a lot more. The Canvas product that I talked about on the earlier episode definitely helps in getting the clients to rethink the brand canvas and think of it in a way that they can use it in their own projects as well. On the employee front, once again, just like Rebecca mentioned, a lot has changed and hybrid is here to stay. And so our yin yang model, which is like the future of work, and we say just like yin and yang, these are the two different aspects of work and home have to come together to form that entire shape of what our work is all about. And we said, okay, so there are times when you would like to be, we are a team sport, and there are times when you would like to be with your colleagues, discuss, brainstorm, plan, collaborate. And there are times when you would like to be on your own, when you are thinking, when you are writing something, when you are getting deeper into an area. And so these two aspects of the brand, and in fact, that helped a lot even in our hiring metrics, because almost everyone is looking for companies where they can have this right balance between work from home and work from office. So these are some of the changes that we have done. And one final thing that is very important, which I think came out in the episode with Ross as well, the clients and user technology buyers are not just looking at what they're buying, but also looking at who they're buying from. And therefore, it is extremely important for the brand to have that community responsibility. We always had that thing in us, but I don't think we were communicating it that well. Now we said that, okay, this is an important aspect, because in all the communities that we are working in, it is important that we show that we are the responsible neighbor there. And so that's another aspect in which the branding has changed, especially for the brand LTI over the last 2 years, and which I believe will sustain as we go forward.
And a NPS that goes up 23. So first of all, I want to step back before I even get to that, which is one of the things that I observed early on during the pandemic is that those that like really hug their customer in a moment of need were forever endeared themselves to their customer. And there were a lot of different ways that the companies went about it, but it really the pandemic was all about how strong are your customer relationships and what can you do to help them get through the pandemic. What do you think was behind a 23-point bump in NPS? I mean, that is enormous by any standard.
I think customers have truly appreciated the fact that we can actually help our clients stay safe as well during this time, especially when the pandemic started sometime early in 2020, May, June, when everybody was bewildered, nobody was able to go to offices. That was a time when our clients really appreciated the fact that we are helping them stay safe as well. We took on a lot more responsibilities, not just because we quickly redrew the contracts and we said, okay, there are areas where you will need help and we are here for you to do that. Here are other ways in which we can support you. As you rightly mentioned, most of the LTIs have to be in the client's offices at times. Our clients were very apprehensive initially when they realized that there will be no contact with the consultants that they will have. They were very pleasantly surprised when they heard the platforms like Canvas, which allow for collaboration in this new way where people are not together. They'll say, okay, if we can do it that way, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's as effective as it is, maybe even more. Why don't we do it that way? So that ability to innovate for our clients and at the same point in time keeping them safe and also showing them that it is possible to meet the SLAs in this new world definitely increase their belief in what LTI can do for them and is now seen in the NPS scores there.
Interesting. Really interesting. Okay, we're going to take a little break because I am going to talk about CMO Huddles for a second. So CMO Huddles was launched in 2020. It's an invitation-only subscription service that brings together an elite group of CMOs to share, care, and dare each other to greatness. One CMO described Huddles as timely conversations with smart peers in a trusted environment, while another called it a cross between an expert workshop and a therapy session. So we've got Rebecca and Peeyush here. I'm just curious. You're both huddlers. Feel free to share your experiences. Rebecca, you've been here a long time. You were
I was one of the first ones, I think, Drew. So
you were.
I would say I have found it incredibly helpful. I think just from an opportunity to interact with other huddlers, I would say that I have created some friendships out of this group, which I really appreciate, as well as just the very strategic but tactical day-to-day kind of questions that every CMO has. What do you think of this product? What is the struggle with this kind of tactic? The Slack group that has been created has been really, really beneficial for just getting answers to those quick questions, but that also lead into those longer conversations that you can have with peers that have been through the same thing. I really appreciate that.
I love it. And thank you for those comments. And Peeyush, you're relatively new to Huddles, but I don't know if you want to share what your impressions have been so far.
Yeah, I'm new here, but really enjoying it. I'm warming up to be a part of this community. I think I have joined 2 or 3 sessions and they were all amazing. What I really enjoy are the emails that you send after each session. And they're so detailed that many a times, as much as you would have wanted to join each session, but if you somehow miss them, you get everything. And my teams definitely don't like, they must be thinking something is going on with this guy, because every week he just comes up, what's this new thing? How is it that I don't know about this yet? So you're definitely helping me and not helping them in that way. So.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that syndrome. All right. Let's just talk about brand health and how you all are measuring it and tracking it for your businesses. Rebecca?
Sure. I think we talked a little bit about NPS, which is one of the core ones that we use to track how our customers are seeing us. We've also started to work with a couple of measurement platforms to measure how we are being seen out in the market, which is another one. And then one that is, I don't know how traditional it is, but we are covered quite heavily with the Gartner Magic Quadrants. And so we use that as another way to track our brand health. Part of what goes into a Magic Quadrant from Gartner is they are including customer reviews in that session. And so by the number of 5-star Gartner reviews, things like that that leads into a higher Magic Quadrant rating is one of the key metrics that we're tracking.
And from a measurement platform, are we talking about things like the Serious Decision Index or?
No, so we're using a measurement platform to measure our outbound, like how many times we're showing up in coverage, how often we're showing up, what are the clicks that we're driving, things like that. So.
Okay, got it. And Peeyush, how are you measuring brand health besides NPS?
So definitely everything that Rebecca mentioned, Gartner Magic Quadrant or Everest Peak Metrics, Forrester Waves are all important. How some of this has changed with more of word of mouth tools like the Gartner's peer review, which Rebecca mentioned, or the G2 or Capterra. These are all good ways to look at that. One more thing that we do is that we do have a brand valuation consultancy that kind of measures the value of the brand, kind of gives the real value to the brand as to what LTI's value as a brand is once a year. And we track that, whether this is going higher or lower.
Is this an in-house tool or is this something you're working with a third party on?
It's a third party. It's a brand valuation consultancy.
There are a couple of major branding firms that do that. We'll include those in the show notes. Okay, that's cool. Now let's get to, do you still find yourself in debates about the value of brand with your peers in the C-suite? And if so, what's the thrust of the argument? And has it changed at all over the last couple of years?
I wouldn't say there's any resistance to branding, but at the same point in time, it's not like go do whatever you want kind of freedom as well. The fact that a strong brand reduces friction to sales is very well established within the C-suite now. I think I heard it in one of the huddles, in fact, but I always use the analogy of thinking of vitamins versus the pills kind of thing. And it's good to have that strong brand as your vitamins on a day-to-day basis, rather than having to go for pills at some point in time. And this whole notion of a strong brand helping the company move from lead gen to demand gen is great. To reduce more of the outbound, to get more of inbound, where the deal velocity is faster, where the deal size is slowly getting larger as well. So we don't feel that resistance anymore. And the debates on the brand investments are not as many as I would have faced many years ago.
And so is it as simple, and Rebecca, you can answer, so inbound and the volume that is a reflection of brand strength, brand awareness, is it that easy?
I think that to your point, Drew, about how you tie word of mouth marketing to an inbound lead is hard to draw those conclusions, but I would say that see a jump in inbound when you have better branding and you can show it, especially I think to Peeyush's point, if you have an organization that has historically been focused really more on that, and I think there is a nuanced difference between lead gen and demand gen that a lot of C-suite doesn't maybe understand, but when you start to see that, hey, I can put a little bit more towards the brand aspect of it, and all of a sudden I get in those names without as much of the work, is a great story to tell, and is one that when you start to see that shift is pretty easy once people understand it, but you have to be able to show that there's that shift there to, I think, get the buy-in sometimes.
So as I'm thinking about this, I mean, one of the other ways that salespeople notice brand is when they knock on a door or make a phone call and somebody hasn't heard of you. Air cover is obviously another term that is used to describe brand, but both of you are coming from companies that have really large footprints. So, I would imagine there isn't a single customer you could call, Rebecca, that hasn't heard of Cisco.
Yeah, I think from a Cisco perspective, it would be very hard to find a customer who hasn't heard of us. But what we do have the challenge with is Cisco has historically been known as an enterprise brand. So it's big, it's expensive. Some customers believe that it's overly engineered if I'm a small customer. And Meraki is really targeting that smaller customer or has historically targeted that smaller customer. And so getting the customer to like readjust their own definition of what they know about the product to be something that is incorporative and inclusive of their type of business is sometimes a shift and something that we have to work on both internally and externally. Internally, we've been known as the small business company, and we're trying to change that to being that we can be enterprise too. So it's sort of, we have different dynamics of like how to balance between internal expectations and external expectations.
Yeah, and this is the dual brand issue that you sort of face. Is
Exactly.
interesting. So, how does CSR fit into this as we think about brand and your overall marketing strategy? I mean, Rebecca, I know you and I have talked about this in huddles occasionally, but I'm just curious. And again, you have a complicated thing because there's Cisco and then there's Meraki. Does Meraki have its own CSR activities?
Yes, we do. And I think we do because we have a Meraki brand. We have our own website. We have a brand look and feel that is distinct from Cisco. So not every business unit within Cisco has that, but we have, and that's partially because we historically went after an audience that was different than the traditional Cisco audience, which is what the answer to the other question was. So that's how I think about it.
So specifically CSR, connect a CSR activity to sort of brand, and then because you say you connect brand and demand, and there's got to be this through line. Can you do that with CSR too?
Yeah, I think so, because Cisco itself has a broader CSR strategy. And then within Meraki, the products that we build, depending on how we build them and what they're doing, we have a specific story that we're telling. We're going to be launching, I think in a couple of weeks, actually, some of our initiatives around I just went blank on the proper title for carbon footprint, but we're definitely closing the loop, and we're able to do that within the Meraki products, if that makes sense.
And Peeyush, how does CSR fit into your brand strategy?
So one thing, Drew and Rebecca, which you probably may know, but you may find surprising, is that for companies that are listed in India, which LTI is, the companies have to invest 2% of their net profit into CSR activities, which is huge, right? For 2% of the net profit. With that kind of investment, we partner a lot with the CFO, with the CSR teams at multiple levels. So one is at the company level, where we have the one-step initiative, where we say that, okay, the 3 E's, which are environment, empowerment, and education, how do we support each one of them, and how do we communicate, how do we tell? Now, at the other level is that we also support the initiatives that our clients are interested in. So I talked about the importance of social responsibility and being a responsible citizen in the communities that we are operating in. And so whether it is the forest fire in California, or when it is COVID in the countries and cities where we all the affected communities, how we will support them. Marketing does play a role in deciding those platforms and then communicating them as well. And finally, at the level of marketing as well, we believe that we have a responsibility. So for example, the holiday gifts over the last 4 years, we changed all the holiday gifts only to, we call it treatings. And we say every year, the LTI treatings, we will plant 2 trees in the name of our clients, thousands of them, and they get their QR codes, and then they can watch how their trees are growing. And some of them have kind of witnessed it over the last 3 or 4 years now. So we do those initiatives, whether it is the gifts or swags or the treatings. How do we reduce waste? We are thinking about it right now as we are going back to all the trade shows and conferences, and we are thinking, what is it that we can do, whether it is the gifts or swags at those places or our own booths, how do we reduce waste? So those are the things. One more example that I'll share, which is very close to my heart, is that when COVID first became as big as it became, and masks, we never knew, all of us had never known about wearing masks. And at some point in time, mask was like an important paraphernalia for whatever you did. And so we actually worked with a displaced community where the women artisans used to make beautiful things with all the cloth. And we changed all of them to thousands of masks that LTI bought and gave away. And I wear it even now. So I think some of those things have been part of the brand. And I believe it's extremely important for marketers to keep thinking about that as an important aspect of what we do.
I always learn little phraseologies from you, and I love the 3 E's of environment, education, and empowerment. And I just, that really sticks with me. And one of the things why I was excited to have this show is there are a lot of choices that you all have. And of course, this is the moment where we ask, what would Ben Franklin say in the show? And I was thinking about, as a bigger brand, you can, strategy is about saying no. It is about, you have so many choices. So the line that I have for Ben to quote today is, to succeed, jump as quickly at opportunities as you do at conclusions. So there you have it. Jump as quickly at opportunities as you do to conclusions. And of course, we don't jump to conclusions, not on this show. All right, let's get into the future now a little bit. And, there's a lot of conversation about the metaverse, how it could shape customer engagement, and maybe even how we work together and collaborate. Are you all looking at those areas at all for anything in the near future?
I wouldn't say it's the metaverse, but we are doing some VR type of explorations for our events, Drew. And so I don't know how much that falls into the line that you're doing, but one of the cool things, which actually is related to our CSR events, is we just have redone one of the offices in our New York Cisco office, which has a heavy influence from the Meraki organization. And a lot of that has to do with how we treat, the sustainability in the office. And so at our Cisco Live event, we're looking at potentially exploring like a virtual tour of that office and talking through some of the experience a customer might have and how we are doing some of the things by using our products. So there are potential tie-ins, I think, to CSR and how you demonstrate that to your customer base in a forward-looking way.
And Peeyush, what about you and how are you thinking about the metaverse?
Pretty much the same boat. I think there's tremendous interest, and we are doing what teams should do, more POCs. Something very exciting that we are working on is, we said, let's just change case studies to case stories. And we are working on 3 case stories, which are told in the metaverse, and call it metaverse or call it just the VR headset, but more stories, 2 to 3 minutes within that. We are also looking at Decentraland, which is pseudo metaverse, let's say, I agree, but looking at Decentraland and trying to open an office there now. So some of these small little things is what we are working on.
And so now we're talking about the future. What about Web 3.0 and a world without cookies or third-party data? Rebecca, what's your thinking there?
I think it's realer now than it was even 6 months ago, for sure. We're definitely starting to see a change and a shift in how the companies that we work with are even thinking about it. Those companies who were traditionally in a cookie world and now have to move to a cookie list or in data buying as a result of some of the things that are going on in privacy rules around the globe. I wish I had a better answer. We are trying a bunch of different things to go after that. We're looking at more account-based targeting than we had previously and just doing kind of blanket account-based targeting. We're looking at things like more of those hand raisers and being in places where hand raisers can be rather than trying to go out to them and get them to align. And I think we're going to be testing out a couple of different things that not necessarily ready for prime time to talk about yet, but that we're trying to kind of get that information ourselves. We also have the benefit of being part, again, of a very large organization that has a pretty large first party data footprint. And so how do we use that more than we have in the past as well?
I gotta believe that there's also going to be just physical events are just going to come back in like the biggest way possible because it's like everybody wants to come out. They're certainly for customers. There's no doubt in my mind that physical events are going to be part of the answer to this data question because that's how you'll get first party data again, but also get engagement. But I'm curious, Peeyush, did you have some thoughts on Web 3.0?
Yes. In fact, incidentally, I wrote a LinkedIn article on the whole idea of Web3 last week itself. And I believe that this is also Web3 is also the advent of marketing 3. Just like the Web 1, Web 2 meant marketing 1, marketing 2, this is marketing 3 for us. And we gotta be ready. So few things that will change for marketers. Number one, there's new avenues for branding, which we all know, more NFTs. The ownership of content, which has always been an issue, and we have always been thinking about that. That is very clearly going to be defined in the world of Web3. So the content managers will be thinking in very different ways, and they'll be having many more content creators rather than just 2 or 3 or few that we work with. And that relates to the value accretion, because the value accretion right now, which is always, of course, there are intellectual property, but then when it is clearly defined and when it is at scale, some of that we currently see in Patreon and few other tools. Now think of it in the crypto world, in the blockchain world, and it just scales up tremendously. New forms of communities in terms of DAOs, which are coming in. Influencers that we have been working with, even in marketing 2 or Web 2, influencers have become so important. And think of how influencers will become somebody who has a Bored Ape and is making a t-shirt out of it. And you'll say, okay, this is the one that I want to now brand as an LTI t-shirt as well. So that whole thing, the influencers will change. And finally, I think Rebecca talked about privacy as well. In the permissionless blockchains, how we look at privacy. Twitter is now sold today. So I guess there'll be a whole new debate of free speech once again. In that debate, privacy becomes even more important. So that'll be another area that I think we need to. So marketing 3 is almost here. It's pretty much the advent of next 10 years, which will be extremely interesting for all of us.
Okay, real quick. So I noticed, and this happened, a couple of huddler brands are on television for the first time or buying stadium rights. I mean, it feels so retro to me. Either of you putting some money into a stadium or television?
No stadiums, but we did run our first TV ad on Hulu last week. So
there you go. All right. Peeyush, real quick on that. Naming a stadium anytime soon?
No, we're not naming, and I think, yeah, but smart TV, I think it's a great idea. I definitely think we have not been there yet, but definitely look forward to trying that soon.
All right. So now we have got 1 minute left for final words of wisdom for CMOs looking to make the case for brand related spending. Rebecca.
I would say it is a absolute requirement. You absolutely need to do it. And the best way to start is just to start with what you have and start to track it and expand from there.
All right. We're going to track it and make sure. Okay. Peeyush, what's your tip there?
My tip would be to look at awards. Awards are low-hanging fruit. Everybody loves winning awards, and awards definitely give a big fillip to the brand as well. So marketers that are trying to get started into the brand marketing should look at awards for the companies that they're working for the leaders who are there, the CEO award, the CFO award, and that'll definitely help create more followership for the brand and also for your own ideas.
I love that idea. You might even find that in Renegade Marketing, 12 Steps to Building Unbeatable B2B Brands. Who knows? Okay, thank you both. You're both great sports. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. Let's cue the music. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, and until next time, keep those Renegade thinking caps on and strong.